I come out of Hounslow, went back on drugs, most probably worse than what I was before because I'd felt a failure, and people had invested a lot of time and money in me and all the rest, and it was like a threat in their face, and then the guilt sets in, so take more drugs to get rid of the guilt. And then again, Rob Hughes, I didn't know till years later he was actually a resident of Yeldall Manor and was an ex-addict, and he'd got his Bachelor of Arts, and he spent his life helping addicts, and he got me into Yeldall Manor Christian Rehabilitation Centre at Wargraven. To call it a rehabilitation centre, I've said this many times, does not do the place justice. It, for me, I remember the first day pulling up this daunting building and all oak panelled, it was an ex nunnery, I think, or something like that, and it was massive and acres of land, and it was just like being in a different world. And I remember walking through the doors, but I think there is where I met with God properly. It wasn't a sort of lightning bolt moment. It was at Yeldall Manor, they try to discipline you and to teach you, but they do it with love. And don't get me wrong, their disciplines, well, I found them quite harsh, and I had a few arguments there, but the love and the discipline, it goes hand in hand. Whereas a child, I only had discipline, which I ignored and just went off and done my own thing, but I didn't feel any love. And then I've had people love me, and I've took the mick because there's been no discipline, and I've not had boundaries. But at Yeldall Manor, they taught me boundaries, and just walking through the doors, it's hard to explain. I'm not a really sensitive type person, but I walked through them doors and there was a sense of peace that I'd never felt before in my life, and even though I was apprehensive and frightened of being there, because I knew that I was gonna be there at least a year and a half. By that time, I already had 3 children and 1 on the way. I was 21 years old, no, 22, sorry, and I knew for a year and a half, I wouldn't be seeing anyone, and it was very daunting. But bit by bit, I don't know. It's only again when I look back, that day I cried out to God in the dark depths. There's a sequence of events that followed that could only be. I suppose people that don't know God would say they were coincidences, but these were too tidy to be coincidences, and it was like God was, I don't know, God, I know my worth in God now, but at the time I didn't. But God is so amazing. Without any effort from myself, He put these steps in place and because I'd cried out in the depths, and I cried out with sincerity that I very rarely have, and because it was my last option, and without any effort from me, Jesus makes your burden light, and He did. Even though I was struggling, going through in-depth things at the time, these steps that God was taking me through, and I became a member of a lovely church at 3 Mile Cross, a pastor called John Anglis, who baptised me. And my walk with the Lord was amazing while I was at Yeldall Manor. I got married while I was at Yeldall Manor, and at the same time, one of the most painful things in my life happened while I was there. I lost my granddad. And but God's love was with me. I'd actually struck another resident while I was there, and I wasn't allowed to watch my granddad die. But towards the end, they let me sit with him while he died. And God knew that if that had have happened and I wasn't at Yeldall Manor, I would have just been dead on drugs. So even the bad things that hurt us, and that God had a plan to put me in a place where I would be protected and comforted and more able to deal with it. And yeah, and I moved house. I had another child while I was at Yeldham, and a lot of the three stressful things that happened to me within 2 weeks. My granddad died. I had to bury him. We had to move house from Whitley to Caversham. My wife, my ex-wife now, but had another child. So, and all these things that smaller things and that I could never cope with while I took drugs. These big things happened, and I coped with it. But it wasn't me. It was God helping me, developing me, and taking me forward.